Hi, Naropa faculty. My name is Sherri Pauli, and I am the acting director of Naropa University Libraries. This is your orientation to library resources. So to navigate to the library webpage, you can type in library.naropa.edu. Pretty straightforward. You can also scroll to the bottom of any naropa.edu webpage, and on the second column, right there, you'll just see the word library, pretty small font. This is the Allen Ginsberg Library. It's our largest library, and it's on the Arapahoe campus. And we do have a library at each campus generally. Right now, the two libraries that will be open to some capacity due to COVID impact are Allen Ginsberg Library and then the Paramita Library. The Nalanda Arts Library is closed for this school year. If you have questions or concerns regarding that, please just get in touch with us. That leads me to the best way to get in touch with us. I think it's really important to share that, and that will be emailing library@naropa.edu. So the library@naropa.edu address, that goes to all of the staff who work in the library, and it is the best way to get in touch because you're going to get the quickest response that way. The person who needs to answer a specific question will always do so, and somebody will get back to you. You're totally welcome to go to our contact us page right here and look and see this special specific contact info for each staff person. We do each have multiple and various responsibilities, so it will take a little longer. So here we are again at the home page. If you scroll down, this is where we're keeping all of the current COVID impact updates, and we're trying to keep these as accurate and timely as possible. Depending on the day, week, or month during COVID, this has changed very often. There is, of course, a general Naropa University updates up here that's linked out at the top of every Naropa webpage. These are the links, obviously, the tabs for pretty much everything you might need through our library. This is our patron services page, and if you're curious about different types of service, you can click on any of these. Obviously, you're going to be most curious probably about faculty services. We're currently actually updating a lot of our pages with the COVID impacts, so come here when you're ready and you want to see what your circulation allowances are, and other relevant information would be things around collections development and course reserves. Course reserves are definitely impacted by COVID because they are physical, and so we're working that out right now. The information will be up to date in the next few days. There are some really helpful copyright tool links here because we do get a lot of questions about copyright. Here's a fair use evaluator. This is a checklist that's in the Creative Commons, so you can actually save it and use it in perpetuity. These are just a few other resources that you can use to determine if you're doing fair use. And then another really helpful area is going to be the Finding Research Resources page. And all of these pages are actually drop downs, so sometimes people get confused. So you can just click on Finding Articles to find your databases, your journal locator, and interlibrary loan information. Here's the books, book resources, Hellcat, EBSCO ebooks. Right now, University of Colorado Boulder is closed to us and any non-CU community members, unfortunately. Another helpful area right now, let's see, it's under Finding Research Resources, so we'll scroll down. It's free research resources. So here's some free online resources, and I recommend going through these links. Some of these have paid versions, so if you do a Google search online, you might end up at a version where there's things that you are going to be asked to pay for that you can't have full access to. But if you go this route, you should be able to access a lot of what's here. I would assume that you are familiar with databases, because you are an instructor. But I'll quickly show you. So this is how we have ours organized. And then we have them in these kind of very general subject areas and fields. And these all do correspond to curricula at Naropa. We subscribe to a lot of these databases through EBSCOhost. So choose databases. You can see all the databases that are subscribed to through EBSCO here, and you have access to all of this. It's really cool. So you can just hover there and it will show you what's in each of these. So if you do want multiple databases in your search, you can just click on one or all of them, anywhere in between, hit OK, and then search away. Some of our databases, and they're standalone journals really, are just hosted through the publisher. And so you see that they just look it's pretty simple actually, so it's kind of nice in that way, in that you just have a general search field and you search within the journal or within the database that contains just this one journal. And then down here, if you know exactly where you're going, you can always just use the alphabetical list, and these are all linked out. Another helpful thing is the online journal locator. So if you know specifically what you're looking for, so a few results come up, and each result tells you what we have. This one's 1963 to present, and it's in APA Psych articles. So if this was the one you were like, oh, I'm actually looking for that, that's what I wanted, you click on that. It'll default you into the database it's hosted in, and this is the journal, this is the collection. So that's really helpful. And then the final helpful thing for when you are looking for these types of articles is interlibrary loan. And interlibrary loan right now is we're doing article requests. We're able to make those and fill them, but then we are not able to do physical book requests right now, unfortunately, because of COVID. This is how you make an article request. So anytime you need an article through interlibrary loan, you can just come to our website and click on the interlibrary loan link, and that information is here for you. So we have archives and recordings. You can find the archival recordings in a few different places. You can go through the research resources link, and they're here under find recordings. You can also go through this general tab. So you can click on the archives. This is a neat resource. People from all over the world use it. It is a collection of indexed and live recordings from Naropa University. So it's really nice to get to briefly show you or walk you through the resources we have, and I hope to get to meet you, whether it's online or someday in person, and welcome. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Amanda Aguilera, and I'm the Senior Director of Mission, Culture, and Inclusive Community at Naropa University. I want to start off by saying welcome to Naropa. This is a very unique community, and I'd like to share with you some aspects of our culture and how we build well-being and community resilience, not just among our students, but among everyone in the community. So when we say well-being, what we're really referring to is an interdependent experience of a lot of different things. So it's not just about emotional well-being or physical well-being, but it's all the different aspects that make up an experience of health, of experience of satisfaction, an experience of well-being in all of these different areas. So at Naropa, we are trying to create an experience that approaches all of these different aspects of well-being. one of the ways that we do this is through actively building community resilience. And how we define that is really just our ability to be both proactive and responsive to challenges or changes or things that happen through natural growth and evolution. So what we would like to do is move from a more reactive place to a responsive and hopefully eventually proactive place. So what we will be presenting from student affairs and the care team and the services that we offer to students, we're really trying to be less reactive, more and more responsive, and hopefully proactive. And we need your help in order to make that happen. So part of the series of trainings that we offer to both students and faculty and staff have to do with these different pieces. And these are the pieces that actually make up community resilience. So these pieces we'll look at a little bit more closely, but they involve emotional intelligence, social power dynamics, what it means to be actively responsible versus passively responsible, psychological safety, and collaboration. So one of the biggest pieces is emotional intelligence. So this is really our capacity to be aware of what's going on internally so that we can better handle things externally. So really emphasizing the intrapersonal experience so that we can improve the interpersonal experience. And a lot of times emotional intelligence gets misinterpreted. So we're not talking about being really emotional all the time or just expressing one's emotion and processing that. Typically, we're not talking about therapy when it comes to emotional intelligence, although certainly that's an aspect of the therapeutic experience. But we really want to build this capacity in all of our community members. These are the different components of emotional intelligence. So what we're talking about is the ability to have self-awareness or reflexive awareness, self-regulation. So how am I able to manage my emotions in the moment? This is particularly important for leaders in our community, as we'll talk more about how important this piece is to creating an equitable and healthy environment for our students. Motivation, empathy, and social skills are also aspects of emotional intelligence. Another part is we use a framework called right use of power. And right use of power has to do with conscious ethics and social power dynamics. So what is beautiful about right use of power is it gives us a common language to use when it comes to understanding and talking about power dynamics, which is really critical if we're trying to build not only a resilient community, but also one that is conscious of dynamics of privilege and oppression, and that is building equity and actively awakening to, being aware of, and preventing harm or oppression. This isn't about, even though it says right use of power, this isn't about pointing out what's right and wrong. It's actually very much the opposite. It gets us out of that dualistic framework. And it's also not about never misusing our power. So right use of power is actually just being aware of the power, understanding it, and being able to navigate it more effectively. Active responsibility is a term that comes from restorative practices, and a part of restorative practices is restorative justice, if you're all familiar with that. But active responsibility is really pointing to, again, this self-aware act of taking responsibility. So it's this intrinsic ability to understand what is needed in the moment, instead of assuming it's someone else's responsibility or trying to wait until you're being held accountable. So this is really cultivated through strong relationships. We can build active responsibility through building relationships. And when we do that, we have opportunities for giving and receiving feedback, for repairing relationships when there's harm that is occurring. So active responsibility is really in opposition to passive responsibility. And we're really trying to build this as a part of our culture at Naropa. This is the social discipline window, which was developed by Tad Wachtel from the IIRP. And one of the things that I love about this, that it illustrates, is that it shows that a balance of support and control is really not only possible, but it is necessary if we're going to build resilient community. So a restorative approach is one where we have balance between support and accountability, where we're doing things with the person that has caused harm or with the person who has broken the rules. Instead of doing it for them, so being high on support and low on control, that is considered to be permissive. On the opposite end, if we're high on control and low on support, we are being punitive, right? And so often we get caught in this trap of being really, really supportive of students and doing a lot for them, right? And then what we notice is that, oh, we're doing things for them, and then they keep doing the behavior that is causing disruption or the behavior that is not healthy or causing harm. And so if they keep doing that, then we might flip to a punitive response, doing things to them. So, okay, we've now given you all of this room and all of this support, and you haven't been appreciative, so now we're going to punish you. And then we feel bad about punishing them, and so we slip back to being permissive and doing things for them. If anyone is a parent here, you'll understand this back and forth that can happen if we're not being conscious and how we are responding to misconduct or other things that are outside the bounds of our community standards. So the approach that we are striving to take at Naropa is a more restorative approach. And this, again, goes back to the ability to be responsive instead of just reacting, which is often where punitive and permissive responses come from. So we have an initiative here at Naropa called Restorative Community, or the Restorative University Initiative. And this pyramid, if you look at the top three, repair, communication, and community building, that small pyramid with just those three levels is often presented to illustrate restorative practices. Restorative practices is actually quite a big range, and often when we think about restorative practices, we think about restorative justice. And so we think about the repair or the formal process or conversation that happens in restorative justice where one person has done something wrong and we sit together and we talk about the impacts and the harm. We talk about the other responsibilities of whoever was responsible for those impacts and harms and how those harms can be repaired. But restorative practices actually has many, many layers, and I just want to explore these so that you can understand how we are culturally oriented and how we operate and deal with students. So before we can do repair, we have to have the ability to communicate or to state, to give and receive feedback. So if we are able to say right away when something is bothering us or when a boundary has been crossed, then often it won't get to the point where we need to have a formal repair process. We can simply communicate. Hey, this was my expectation. I expected you to look up your assignment since you missed class on your own. And it sounds like you had an expectation that I would send you that assignment. So there is the presence of conflict, right? I define conflict as different needs, beliefs, or expectations or commitments that are present. So if we can communicate about those different needs, beliefs, expectations, or commitments, then we can actually prevent a lot of the harm that is caused from conflict. So underneath communication is community building, and community building is really about relationships. So before we can actually have honest dialogue and communicate effectively, there has to be some foundation of relationship there. So community building is really about how are we consciously building relationships with our students? How are we consciously building relationships with our colleagues? And what is needed to actually water those relationships, if you will, to tend to those relationships so that they stay healthy? Are we doing active things to build trust, to build that relationship? And this is really where the proactive piece comes in. So community building, communication repair all represent restorative practices. When I looked at that pyramid, I realized that something was missing. And Regina Smith and I, who's another staff member here at Naropa, she and I looked at it and we said, well, we can't actually build community if we don't have a good understanding of power dynamics. If we don't understand the structural framework of power, how power is used and abused and misused, then we can't actually build community. And if we do build community without understanding social power dynamics from an anti-oppression framework, then we will just build more oppressive systems, right? So there's a foundation that is necessary in order to build relationships that are healthy and not oppressive. We have to understand those power dynamics first. Underneath that is mindfulness, which is a critical foundation for exploring social power dynamics, because we have to have available to us a reflexive awareness, the ability to be present, not only with what's happening inside for us, but also to be really present with other people. We have to understand what is happening in the moment, be willing to sit with the discomfort sometimes that comes with being aware of power dynamics, etc. So mindfulness is a really key part of the contemplative education that we offer at Naropa. And so you'll find a lot of opportunities for cultivating that. And then, of course, the ground of the awareness practices and of the entire pyramid. This is called the restorative integration pyramid. The foundation for that is compassion. So compassion is where we start. There's a basic goodness that we recognize in ourselves and others. And it's from that ground in which we can engage in healthy conflict and generative conflict. Psychological safety is another huge component that is a shared belief. So everyone has the shared belief that it is safe for interpersonal risk taking. So psychological safety does not mean the absence of conflict or avoiding conflict. It doesn't mean let's make the space comfortable. It means that everyone in the group feels like it is a safe place and it's actually part of the culture to take risk, to maybe say something that you wouldn't normally say in society, right? There's a foundation of that interpersonal acceptance and trust that is built through psychological safety. So one of the really helpful windows for understanding this, and I think this is developed by Amy Edmondson, So this, and particularly this is relevant for classrooms. Learning can really only happen when there's just enough psychological safety balanced with accountability. Otherwise, we create an environment that is either too comfortable or too anxiety provoking. So psychological safety is needed in order to get to that place where there's most effective learning. And as you all are educators, you're probably familiar with similar theories, but I just thought I would point to this as a part of our community resilience. Another piece is collaboration, and this one I cannot emphasize enough. It's so easy to get siloed, especially in the time of everyone being online and on Zoom. So I just want to emphasize, if you are struggling, if you feel isolated, please reach out. It takes the entire community and takes collaboration to build community resilience. We cannot do that siloed where everyone's doing their own thing. So we will present opportunities for that collaboration, and we are really working more and more towards that. And if you have ideas for that, I encourage you to bring those into the community. So we provide a number of proactive support services at Naropa for students, and the majority of those come through student affairs. Student affairs provides a lot of training opportunities for students. We have a student counseling center. We have accessibility services, which you'll see a video from Moises on. We have a writing center to help folks with students with writing. And then we have, of course, academic advisors that are on call to help students navigate not only their academic journey, but also as a point person for other concerns. If you have any questions about any of the things that I presented today, or if you would like to take a training, you can email me. My email address is there. You can also go to the SharePoint Student Affairs website or look at the university calendar. We're always offering training opportunities in power dynamics, in giving and receiving feedback, and managing classroom conflict. So if you ever need anything, any sort of support in that way, please don't hesitate to reach out. I wish you all the best.
Hi, I'm Austin Pick, Director of Undergraduate Academic Advising and Supervisor of the Academic Coaching Program, and in this segment I'd like to briefly introduce our student support process and how we can work together to support students' developmental and educational journey. Though we are a small school, Naropa has an array of community support and engagement resources. At the center of our student support process are these four interlinked functions. Let's talk about the care team. The care team's role is to support a safe and thriving community through outreach and response to students of concern, which means students facing challenges that may impede their success in school. The care team is comprised of representatives from across the university. So how do you recognize students who need care? Of course, some behaviors are simply a matter of classroom management. However, when you notice patterns or sudden changes, it may be appropriate to notify the care team. These include changes to a student's behavior or mood over time, students engaging in aggressive or inappropriate behaviors, or students repeatedly violating boundaries you've set, or failing to comply with behavioral requests. So how do you notify the care team? Naropa is currently transitioning to new information management systems, so we've set up a hub called the Gateway where you can find everything. It looks like this. At present, our Student of Concern Early Alerts portal is on the old My Naropa site, which we're calling My Naropa Classic. Click All Other Services to access Classic My Naropa. On the bottom of the left-hand sidebar of every page in Classic My Naropa, you'll see a Report a Student Concern link that looks like this. Clicking that will take you to a short form where you can submit your early alert concern. We're excited to be integrating a new early alert system called Iris soon, so stay tuned and information will be provided when that system is up and running. So let's review. You should submit an early alert whenever you notice changes or new patterns to a student's mood or behavior that may impede their ability to succeed in school. We call these early alerts because the goal is to allow university support services to skillfully intervene before the problem rises to the level of crisis. Once you've submitted an early alert, what happens? Early alerts are reviewed by case managers immediately and responded to based on an assessment of urgency. It's important to note that student information is protected by FERPA laws, so that submitters won't always know the outcome of the early alert intervention strategy. This is particularly true of potential community standards infractions, including conduct and Title IX issues. As you've already heard Amanda speak to, we are a restorative first community, meaning we value relationships and responsibility, and we view it as everyone's job to take active responsibility in upholding community standards. Care team values related to community standards. We courageously design a co-curricular journey where students have the opportunity to learn through the valuable experiences of failure, conflict, and self-responsibility. We use a restorative approach to create and maintain balance between support and accountability. And what this really means is that we are invested in an approach that is educational and empowering, rather than strictly punitive. Similarly, the process guided by the Code of Conduct also uses a restorative approach. Title IX is a federal civil rights law that governs how concerns related to sexual harassment and gender discrimination and/or violence are handled by universities. Concerns related to Title IX submitted to the care team will be addressed by the Title IX coordinator. In addition to these formal processes, Naropa fosters a number of additional resources to create proactive opportunities for the community to build capacity for being responsive rather than reactive. These include important conflict resolution and other training opportunities. Finally, I'd like to leave you with this short section on safety, discomfort, and the educational process from the Naropa University Student Handbook. We wish you a great semester.
Welcome to the ADA compliance training. What to do in the classroom. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed by Congress in 1990. It's the nation's first comprehensive civil rights law addressing the needs of people with disabilities, prohibiting discrimination in employment, public services, public accommodations, and telecommunications. The most common accommodations are e-text, which stands for electronic text, flexibility in attendance, usually due to a medical condition, flexibility in assignment, deadlines or exams or papers, and extra time. It could be 1.5 times or 2 times, meaning 150% of the time or 200% time allotted when compared to students that do not have an accommodation. We'll go over that in greater detail as well. What does this mean for faculty? When one or more of your students has an accommodation for e-text or electronic text, please follow these instructions. There are 4 easy steps to stay in ADA compliance when uploading reading selections to online sourcebook. You may receive a notice of accommodations for e-text at any time during the semester. Some students do not get diagnosed until after the semester starts. That's why it's important to make sure that all of your readings are scanned with ADA compliance, even if you have not received notice that there is a student with a learning disability that has that accommodation in your class. Rule number 1 of 4. Number one is 1 page per scan. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. What about 1.5 pages? The answer is no. The text reading software will read those half pages as if they were part of the page you meant it to scan. So it cannot discern which page you meant to scan from the pages that you actually scanned. So if you scan 1.5 pages, it will read 1.5 pages. So obviously that half page will make the rest of the reading non-cohesive. What about 2 pages per scan? It's twice as fast. The answer is no. Again, the text recognition software that legally blind students will use or dyslexic students will use reads from left to right, from page 1 to 2, then back to page 1 again. So it cannot be 2 pages per scan. This is an example of a book that was scanned with 2 pages at a time. The book is placed flat on the scanner, and you can see there's a page on the left side and a page on the right side. To a non-disabled person, this might make perfect sense. You know that the title is on the top left, or the heading for that chapter. You would read the left side column first, and when you get to the bottom, where it says questions of relevance, your eyes would then go to the right top part of the page and read the quotations. Oh yeah, she always has to call me because, and so on. However, the reading software will read from left to right regardless of columns. It will read top left, knowing artistry, and then go to the right. Oh yeah, she always has to call me because I forget to put the movies back in the cases before. After the word before, it will go all the way to the left side again because that's the next available line. The drive-through line at the new Starbucks, the lat. After the word lat, it will not say latest. It'll say lat and then go to the right again. I return them. As you can see, this makes no sense. Even though it's not a complicated reading or a dense reading, it makes it very hard to understand when you're reading from the left side of the page to the right side of the page and then back to the left side again. This is why ADA compliance prohibits scanning 2 pages at a time. Number 2, always scan pages horizontally, never at a diagonal or vertically. Pretty straightforward. You just line up the book or magazine or whatever you're scanning to be perfectly horizontal in regards to the scanning surface. This book was not scanned horizontally. As you can see, it's got a slight tilt to it. So the result would be most of these words would be made into gibberish. It would misalign them from one line to another, and it wouldn't be intelligible at all. This book was scanned vertically and slightly off axis, so it's actually more diagonal, and this would also not be acceptable. All these words would be jumbled and turned into gibberish. Number 3, no underlined or handwritten notes on the page. Again, the software does not recognize handwriting made by humans, only handwritten font. So this is converted into gibberish by the text recognition software just by having stray marks or underlying words or anything of that nature. This is an example of a book that was scanned slightly at an angle. This is not what the book originally looked like. It looked more like one of the diagonally scanned pages that we saw previously. However, the text recognition software doesn't know how to align them when they are scanned diagonally. As you can see, after the third line, there's the word to kind of floating there by itself. It's unclear where exactly that would go. But again, because the page was scanned incorrectly, slightly off axis, slightly diagonally, this is what the text recognition software would read. Starting at after the third line, with the word to, it would read to, then go to the bottom left, introduce the characters that would be our answer. A prologue at this point, A. Santo was in the supernatural market when Billy Joel's, and then would jump to the middle again. New muse, serendipity, dropped into our lives. Actually, she came first to Santo, and then go down again to it says song. It's still rock and roll to me. Came over the store sound system as he, then go to the right again. Loquasto, my production designer. So just by trying to read those 2 lines of text, it makes no sense because they are misaligned. And this is how a screen reader would read it if you scan the page slightly off center or diagonally. That's why it's good to use the ADA scanners that kind of force you to put the book completely and correctly at a horizontal interface to the surface of the scanner. This page has several things wrong with it. Not only was it scanned vertically, if you look at the bottom margin, there's a very dark shadow that kind of made the first letter of every paragraph very dark. This is not recognizable to text reading software. So even though we can kind of turn our heads to the side and read the words and figure out what those darkened letters are by context, especially around the third paragraph above where it says behavior therapies, we can kind of figure out that that says the word can speak with frustrated knowledge of their families, or first-hand knowledge of their families. But we can read the word can by using context clues. If you're a visually impaired student who cannot see the screen, you have no way of knowing what that word would actually be. So that's why you must always scan one page at a time and scan horizontally. This is an excerpt from a previously shown page that has some handwritten notes on it. We might be able to tell that that says SR or the number 8 and an R. After that, there's a handwritten sentence or title that's underlined. We can kind of figure out it probably says Stories of the Spirit. However, a text reading software would read the word stories. It might think it's the letter G lowercase. It might think the next one, instead of a T, looks more like an F because there's a curve on top. The next one could interpret it as a 0. And then there's some kind of an L or an I where the R is not really connected to that little stick on the right. It has no stick on it, actually. The letter I could, again, be a number 1. It could be an L. The letter E in stories could be interpreted as a letter C. And then the word the could be an R followed by a capital L and maybe a letter C. Instead of THE, it'll read it as RLC. And the word spirit, the S is pretty obvious. The letter P might come out correct. The letter I has a dot, so it might interpret it as an I. And then the next letter, even though it's supposed to be an R, it's kind of curved and blending into the next letter I, so it could be interpreted as a letter N. And the last character isn't actually a T. It's kind of like a letter C with a stick on top. So it might interpret it as a C or a letter T. This is why handwritten is not allowed on ADA accessible documents. And the last step is to save it as a PDF file. If you are a faculty member, this may be the limit of your technological abilities to upload things onto online sourcebook. You may only be able to upload PDF files. If you have a paid version of Adobe Acrobat Reader, you can save it as a PDF file and then export it as a Microsoft Word document. This is actually the best option because Microsoft Word has a function where it will read the reading selection to the student. We definitely do not want to save it as a JPEG file. We don't want to just take a picture of text. We would like it to be actual recognized text. There's also another file format called a GIF, very commonly used in Messenger and WhatsApp, etc., even text messages. This is not acceptable because it is just a graphic representation of text, not an actual text. So just follow these 4 simple steps and you will always be in compliance, no matter when a student with a disability applies for accommodations in your class for eText. As a faculty member, it will be very stressful for me to have scanned 30 readings or so for the whole semester, and then get a notice in the middle of, say, October, that now I have to go back and rescan all of them with ADA compliance in mind because they were not scanned correctly the first time. It's better to scan them with these 4 steps in mind from the beginning of the year and never have to rescan them again. Not to mention, it makes the student experience for all disabled and non-disabled students much more pleasant because they can actually read the things that you scan and not having to turn their head sideways or rotate the image or try to figure out using context what the text actually says. So the 4 steps are: 1 page per scan, always scan horizontally, no underline or handwritten notes, and save as a PDF file. If you wanted to add a 5th step would be convert to a Word document. But again, if you don't have the paid software of Adobe Acrobat Pro, it is also called Adobe DC, then that wouldn't be an option for you. And you don't have to do that. The next accommodation is called flexibility in assignment deadlines or flexibility in attendance. These are 2 separate accommodations, but they sometimes go hand in hand. The student may have a medical or psychological disability that causes them to periodically be unable to meet a deadline regardless of how far in advance the deadline is given. It may also make it impossible to get out of bed. Examples of a medical condition are the effects of MS or lupus because they are inconsistent. A student may be perfectly healthy on Monday and be unable to get out of bed on Tuesday. So any plans to attend study groups, write papers, or go out to do a field study are derailed. This is typically when the student would reach out to you as their professor and ask for flexibility in assignment deadlines or flexibility in attendance. This is assuming that you have already received a notice from my office, the Accessibility Resource Coordination Office, as the student having the approved accommodation. Each student's accommodations are unique. Please note that not all students have both flexibility in attendance and flexibility in assignment deadlines. Treat each student according to their individual accommodation or accommodations. Extra time 1.5x or 2x, which means 1.5 times or 2 times. 1.5 times means you're going to give the student up to 150% of the time compared to non-disabled students to complete an assignment, write a paper, or complete an exam. 2x means 200% of the time compared to non-disabled students to complete an assignment, write a paper, or complete an exam. If you assign a paper to be completed in 5 days, if a student has a 1.5 times as an accommodation for assignments, the student will be able to ask for 7 to 8 days to complete this assignment. If a student has 2 times as an accommodation for assignments, the student would be able to ask for 10 days to complete this assignment. Last-minute changes to your classroom activity or assessments. If you decide to test the class on an assigned reading without notice, a student with dyslexia that needs extra time to read assignments would not be prepared and not do well on the assessment. This would be a case of discrimination against the student and against a protected class. They would go to the Office of Civil Rights if the student decided to file a complaint. Congratulations. This concludes our presentation on the most commonly used accommodations at our university.
Hello, everybody. This is Jirka Hladis. I'm Director of Online Curriculum Development or Distance Learning here at Naropa. And I'm responsible for the operations of our learning management system called Canvas. So I'm assuming that you are brand new to Naropa. You are going to teach for the first time in the fall semester. And so my comments or welcoming remarks are for you, for those instructors. You will be using Canvas as a support for your teaching in the fall. You know, no matter what modality your course was assigned to be, whether it's fully online or partially online, partially residential, whether it's online in real time, asynchronous, no matter how the labels they use when they tell you which modality you use for your teaching is an inflation of words these days. You will have to rely on Canvas no matter what. Okay, so that's the first piece of information. You will not avoid using our learning management system regardless of how you will end up delivering your class in the fall 2020. Second point is that the Canvas is used for not real-time teaching aspects of your course. For example, holding your syllabus, holding your readings, assignments, scanned pages from books and so on in online source book. It will serve as your setting up assignments and managing them and grading them, your online gradebook. And you will also use Canvas for taking attendance, and you can potentially use it also for asynchronous communication for class, like announcements or sending emails to the class list or having even threaded discussions, all of that. And then if you will be having a real-time teaching situations in your course, meeting with your students at particular time in a week and delivering lecture from distance, or you will be meeting with them in a physical location, and yet you will be still recording it, right, for those who will not be able to come. Then for that function, you will be using Zoom, right? The web conferencing video tool we all are now way too familiar with. That's distinct from Canvas, right? Zoom and Canvas are two different things, and you will most likely use Zoom alongside Canvas to deliver your class in the fall. So for the Zoom support, you have to go to helpdesk, one word, at naropa.edu. Now, in terms of getting access to your Canvas as soon as possible, the way it works is that first there needs to be a signed contract for your teaching in the fall that will trigger a series of steps ending up with creating your Naropa email, creating an account in the Naropa system for you, and user ID and password. That would also trigger creating your account in the Canvas for you, and also you being enrolled in your class as a teacher. If you are stuck in the midst of that series of steps, then please rely primarily on your departmental chair, primarily. It will not help to email me to ask how can I access my account and where is my class and so on, because I don't have any power to make any difference here. Once all of that happens, you can go to this page, my.naropa.edu/gateway. This is an important internally oriented website for Naropa employees and students. There you will click on Canvas, and that will bring you, you will enter your user ID and password. That will bring you to this landing page, the dashboard for Canvas. All the Naropa systems, fortunately, use the same user ID and password. You just get one. The Canvas itself is hosted on a server which is naropa.instructure.com. But I strongly encourage you to enter it from the My Naropa gateway, because that will habituate you to access all of the Naropa functions you need to be familiar with gradually, which I will not be talking about. Once you are able to make it to this page, which will list your fall 2020 courses here, at that time, once you finish creating your syllabus, then you should start building your class in Canvas. You can understand that building your class in Canvas is really taking your syllabus, when it's completed, of course, and turning into a dynamic version of it, with all those functions being active and performing, what they need to. Then At that time, you should watch 2 trainings, right? The first of them is called Gentle Intro to Canvas. It's 1.5 hours long, and it will take you through a series of steps, one by one, in a very clear way, how to build your class in Canvas. It's followed by a second part here of that presentation called Developing Modules. That's also 1.5 hours long. And that will, within these 2 videos, it will take you through the entire path of building a class. And I will be posting more videos, for you later in the month when we are approaching the beginning of the semester, so you can learn also how to teach once the class in Canvas unfolds. In terms of the timing of this all, you should publish before August 24th. How far before, that's up to you or your discussion with your departmental chair. It should be somewhat available to students before that date for a few reasons. Number one, that the students can access your syllabus from that space. Number two, they can access the source book readings. And number three is that you can use that space for emailing with students, and they can respond to you if the class is published. And there is one more reason, actually, the fourth reason, which is that in your class, once you build it the way it's explained in these 2 training sessions, it will have some resources for students if they are new to Canvas and to Naropa, in order to them to get self-trained in using Canvas as a student, so that they don't have too many questions. So this is the journey. This is the information I wanted to share with you. Now, support. Where do you get help if you are stuck in your process of building a class, teaching a class, or all things Canvas? First of all, you can click on Help here when you are in your Canvas account. You can phone our 24/7 Canvas support hotline. You can email with the Canvas staff in this way. They don't have any unique email address, but you can access that email function from here, from the help. Okay? So that's second way of getting support. Third, you can chat with your Canvas support staff, and then you can also use their text-based information, so-called Canvas guides. Finally, you can also contact the distance learning office, and we will support you as needed in your Canvas course development. I cannot express it without using some cliche how important or essential is to prepare your Canvas or learning management system part of your teaching very well, especially for this fall semester, where we are very clearly testing our ability to retain our students in the midst of pandemic. And the quality of that environment in Canvas will be one of the most important factors for them to make decision whether they will take this class or drop it, or maybe think they might come in take a break and come in spring, which would put us in very difficult situation as a university fiscally. So please do pay attention to this presentation and to your task to create your Canvas course. Make sure that the syllabus information is in absolute sync with how it is expressed in Canvas. You are using the same terms, the same ways of describing the functions in your class, the same terminology, the same grade book or presentation of assignments, the weighting, the percentages of your grades. It has to all match. And also it needs to be presented in a clear language so that the students are not confused about what you are trying to share with them. So that's all from my side. I wish you good luck, and I wish that you will enjoy your teaching in this unusual year and benefit your students and have some fun as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane Bunin. I'm going to talk to you about the adjunct faculty partners at Naropa University. The partners are here for all adjunct faculty whenever you need help. We're a formal part of faculty governance structures. And in addition to helping adjuncts negotiate the maze of Naropa, we're here to represent your concerns and interest formally to Cauldron, the Senate, and to academic affairs. This is substantive. Naropa could treat us just like contract hires, the way adjuncts at most universities are treated, but we are brought into the actual governance structure. There is a partner for most programs in schools. We want to make sure you know who the partner who represents you is. And even if you're not assigned a specific partner, there will be a partner to represent you that is not a partner in your program. So expect to hear from your partner early in the semester. Here's a list of partners for the coming academic year. I am the coordinator, Jane Bunin. I teach in environmental studies. Brigitte Mars teaches in BA psychology. Jackie Ashley and Patty Chinas teach in the Graduate School of Counseling Psychology. Doug Dupler teaches in core and environmental. Jordan Hill has taught in peace studies and core and transpersonal counseling psychology. And Kabu Young teaches in School of the Arts. So the partners fulfill a central role. We create bridges between adjunct faculty and other constituents of the university. We provide adjunct faculty a governance voice at Naropa, as I mentioned, and we make us visible. We build adjunct faculty community. We foster communications across different programs and with core faculty and with the administration. We problem solve and we support adjunct faculty in realms of contracts, salary, and benefits. We are in the situation of feeling the pulse across much of academic affairs, and at the same time, we don't exactly have department territory since we are adjuncts. We teach over 40% of student contact hours, so we're essential to the richness of teaching at Naropa University and for student retention, which is critical. We're essential for robust departmental contributions to overhead, and in many departments, pivotal for diversity. And many adjunct faculty have worked pro bono for Naropa in various capacities, such as on search teams. and many adjunct faculty have broad and deep knowledge of Naropa and the effective marriage of academics and contemplative practice through their long-standing positions at Naropa. So I'll mention a few accomplishments of the past for the adjunct faculty partners. So we used to work with the provost, now we work with the chief academic officer. We have worked toward improvements in salary and a future schedule. We have arranged in the past concomitant increases in pay as you go up in the ranks. We've been able to have development opportunities and funding in some years. We've carried out surveys of adjunct faculty concerning their teaching, Naropa's infrastructure, the support that they receive, and other topics. We build community where possible. That's going to be hard this semester to meet in person, but we have had some great gatherings in the past. We troubleshoot. Whenever adjunct concerns come up, we try to assist and provide information and facilitate communication. We've done practical, helpful things, such as arranging for parking permits at Arapahoe campus. Now you can get your syllabus printed at the copy center without paying for it yourself, and a variety of such things. There's now in our contracts cancellation provisions in case a course is canceled, that given a certain time frame before the course starts, that there would be a partial payment. We have worked on benefits and credit toward classes for longer times and for families. We have been able to attend a number of faculty retreats and contribute and learn at those. In the past, we've presented at the Board of Trustees meetings to inform trustees of adjunct situations and reasons for making changes. And to our best, we maintain ongoing communication about adjunct concerns between adjunct faculty, programs, and the chief academic officer. So I hope that covers it for you. There's also an e-file which I have sent to Academic Affairs that covers email addresses for the partners. Thank you. Bye.
Welcome everyone to this segment on fostering sustainable and regenerative community for your new faculty orientation. My name is Michael Bauer. I'm the Director of Sustainability at Naropa University. And I'm here with Stephen Polk, who's the Faculty Senate Chair and core faculty in Environmental Studies. Thanks for joining us for this asynchronous presentation. We'll just jump right into it. A little bit of contact information. My email address, mbauer, and Stephen similarly, S. Polk. And we're looking forward to getting to know each and every one of you as closely as possible on your journeys as new faculty here at Naropa University. I started in January of 2018. I had a little bit of background at Naropa through some of the activist work I did in the 2000s with students at Naropa. And then, Stephen, you've been here a bit longer, I believe.
Yeah, I started in the fall of 2016. I actually was born and raised in the Denver metro area. I currently live in Denver. And in the Environmental Studies department, I primarily teach permaculture, which is a approach to not only landscape design, but human settlements generally that increases human health and also health for the planet. We'll be walking you through some of the living laboratories that we have at Naropa and, you know, how we might integrate curriculum across different programs, different departments, fields, and areas of expertise. So really looking forward to that.
Does taking the permaculture courses offer, can you get a basic permaculture certification through your courses?
Yeah, so there are 2 courses that you must complete in order to earn your certificate. The first is the Intro to Permaculture, and then the second course is Permaculture Design. And after completing these 2 courses, you will earn a permaculture design certificate.
Well, thanks, Stephen. Since Stephen brought up being from Denver and being a Colorado native, I'm from Indiana, and I grew up in Illinois, and I moved to Colorado in '96. Moving on to what we're going to talk about today, sustainability is more of a buzzword now probably than it has been in the past 20 years. And it's typically one of the classical approaches is this business model. It was brought about by some economists in the World Economic Forum in the UN, where instead of focusing singularly on the financial bottom line, they brought to bear this idea of, well, actually what we're trying to do is improve life for society and the environment as well as the economy. And at the intersection of those 3 is sustainability. That's the sustainable development or business sustainability model. Our model, and you can also think of it as sort of 3 concentric circles where, and this isn't necessarily our philosophy, but a lot of thinkers in sustainability think in terms of the economy being held by society and everything being held by the ecology, which is the source of all of our life. The way we think about it at Naropa is similarly the ecology holding all life and supporting everything that we do, and then the society being our container as a community. But the way that I build the architecture for the Office for Sustainability at Naropa is by rooting everything in personal or purpose sustainability, in humanity. Without my bias is that we could have a perfect zero-sum system of waste and energy and emissions, and if without addressing the essential confusion of being a human or pain of being a human born in this time, we're going to be back here with these same problems in 100 years or 500 years or whatever it is, because we haven't addressed that particular challenge of humanity, whatever those challenges might be, whether it's depression, anxiety, rage, aggression, political strife. It starts with cultivating at Naropa, particularly our capacity is cultivating awareness and compassion for the self, and then expanding that circle of awareness and compassion and love to others in our immediate surroundings, and maybe even to folks we've never even met before. So we're going to talk a little bit about that over the next 25 minutes as we explore moving beyond sustainable to regenerative, some resources for developing more climate neutral lifestyles, and then moving into this thrivable futures model. So our efforts so far, as we've moved through this journey together, we've made progress over the years and will continue to work on those. The idea for this, the triple bottom line, they call it, of economy, ecology, and society, is integrating these necessarily overlapping domains that more and more we're finding more and more evidence that the reality of it is that they're actually not very distinct at all. And recognizing that reality, we are trying to create a new model of social justice, sustainability, and contemplative practice in the Office for Inclusive Community at Naropa, and whose mission is related here. So with social justice, it begins with justice, equity, diversity, and inclusivity, focusing on dismantling systems of oppression and co-creating this idea of a beloved community, which is a concept from a bell hooks, I think, novel. And the director of the Office for Inclusive Community is also the executive director for Student Affairs, Regina Smith, who I believe you've met earlier today. One of the ways that we introduce this concept to students is different experiential practices. One of them is this identity wheel, where you locate your social identity along this continuum of different areas and identify your social location using this tool, which is extremely helpful in locating where we are similar as humans, but also different in our country and in our culture. Sustainability it used to be called a pillar of Naropa, now we call them curricular commitments. The students in this office actually came about from student agitation. In 2014 and 15, students were camped out on the green in protest of demonstrating the systemic racism and oppression that they had identified at Naropa. And some very radical and necessary changes came about because of that, including the Office for Inclusive Community. From that, students identified the success of that movement and agitated for a similar commitment to sustainability. So they asked for a full-time director, which I was fortunate enough to be awarded in 2017 and started in 2018. And then a core sustainability course, along with the core diversity and equity courses and contemplative practice or contemplative education courses. So we view it as a laboratory for radical innovation and practical action based on actuating the goals of the Climate Action Plan that was completed in 2013 to get us to carbon neutral as an enterprise by 2040. And this commitment then includes 100% renewable energy. We don't generate 100% renewable energy, but we commit to that by purchasing renewable energy certificates and offsets to support our renewable energy goals. We divested completely from fossil fuels in 2013 in our investment portfolio. We've been a zero waste campus since 2000, and we've got solar panels installed on the print shop and on the student pavilion, and soon to be on the Nalanda campus. As mentioned, this office was created in 2018, and we've integrated sustainability into the core learning curriculum for the undergraduates core experience in the fall of 2019. And we're committed to creating 100% carbon neutral buildings and activities by 2040, as I mentioned, measuring and inventorying our greenhouse gas emissions from all of our activities each year, which is one of my responsibilities, and then addressing and creating an action plan or a path towards climate neutrality based on those trends every year. So the Office for Sustainability exists to provide an inspired, purpose-driven community co-designing a regenerative future. That's the Office for Sustainability. Moving to contemplative practice, which is the third piece of the Office for Inclusive Community, based on mindfulness meditation, the Four Noble Truths of Tibetan Buddhism, and this concept of basic goodness in humanity. The contemplative practices that we offer at Naropa are varied. It's an ecumenical university, not necessarily Buddhist, although it is Buddhist inspired and founded by a Buddhist practitioner from Tibet, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. So this model of the contemplative tree of contemplative practices sort of gives a visual of what might be offered from yoga and dance to Tai Chi, and of course, sitting and walking meditation. There's meditation halls throughout the campuses. So the overarching model for the sustainability practices are integrating this unified model of healing society, healing oneself, and then healing the life-giving systems that support all life on Earth. That is social justice, self-investigation, and ecological consciousness. And at the intersection of those three, we might develop this new concept that we could call deep resilience or regenerative community. Regenerative meaning moving beyond sustainable, because the question is, it begs the question, sustainability does, of what are we sustaining? Could we actually move beyond that to regenerate what's been degraded, our degraded social ties and communities? So some resources to get you there. We've got sustainability every day, meaning zero waste stations throughout the campuses, outside of every classroom and outside in the common areas. So you can separate your compostable organic materials from your recyclable plastic, paper, aluminum, and steel, and of course the landfill materials that can't be recycled or composted. The first step in those is always reduce and refuse. Refusing single-use plastics and reducing our consumption are the most efficient, least cost ways to eliminate unnecessary waste. Not always possible. We provide mindful transportation alternatives. Right now, the Naropa Bike Shack, which is our community student-led and student-run alternative transportation resource, where you can come to build a bike and keep it for yourself. Right now, that's on pause because of the pandemic. We can't have any in-person interactions at close range, but we can still work with you to provide repairs, light repairs for your bike so you can get around town in a city that's one of the most bike-friendly cities in the country. If you'd like to ride your bike more, but you just need an adjustment on some things, you can email me or email naropacycles@naropa.edu. But that resource is available, and there's also work study positions available for students who want to work. If you don't have a bike and don't want to own a bike, but you still want to get from A to B mindfully, low carbon, we have a student and faculty and staff B-Cycle membership, meaning it's a bike sharing program where you can check bikes out of a dock and get unlimited 60-minute rides throughout Boulder. So you can download the app or look on your computer or look on a paper map of where the docks are located. And they're numerous and they're all over the place. There's one at Paramita. There's one at the Arapahoe campus. There's not one at Nalanda currently, but in the sort of more dense downtown area, you can get around by B-Cycle. Of course, your bus pass that's provided through your RTD, you can take those anywhere around Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, and out to the airport. And it also includes light rail and the train to the airport as well. We also actually have a car share, if you do need to drive, a car share program where we get a discounted car share membership, and there's cars parked at the Arapahoe and Paramita campuses. Working with the City of Boulder on their community engagement initiative to create a new climate action plan called Climate Mobilization Action Plan. That's pivoted since towards racial justice, diversity, and equity, and of course, COVID-19. There's opportunities there to engage with the city, to land some of these activities in your curricula, like we're doing with the core sustainability class and in other classes. We try to look at this or view this as not as an add-on, but as an augmentation to the work that you're already doing to engage at the community level in developing more resilient and sustainable practices for the community to build us towards that better future that we believe is possible. So the way we land this here at Naropa is start out with student orientation, talking about this unified model of sustainability, social justice, contemplative practice. We provide community gatherings. Every spring we do this Earth Justice Day on campus. This year it was all online. Hopefully next year we can get back together, but we'll see what happens with the development of the coronavirus pandemic. In 2018, we brought Denver native and increasingly national and international vegan permaculture activist, DJ Kavam. Iatef Vida is his name. He came and played music for us. And we last year had this Earth Justice series rooted in indigenous cultures and traditions, and moving towards more ecologically conscious community, how indigenous cultures have been doing that for thousands of years. And then last year for Community Week, the theme for Community Week was just joy. Multiple meanings there. We brought artist Greg Deal from Naropa, who's an artist down at the Artist in Residence at the Denver Art Museum. And he performed throughout the week, including painting this mural on the Arapahoe campus that he calls Rise. And we provided this community gathering called Gratitude as an Act of Resistance. So there's these activities and gatherings, will be limited, of course, but that we provide to continue to explore, how do we unify these? How do we bring together and actualize in community this concept, which is still sort of at the conceptual level, bringing this to the reality. So the old story is one where humans are the problem, we're a cancer on the earth, and we live in this sort of linear, reductive model. The new story is moving beyond sustainable to regenerative, from reductive to synthesis, and from oppression to liberation. That new story is what we need, because we're stuck in this old story that's decadent, and we need a new narrative to help guide us into the future. So it's a new way of being, and that way of being is going to be continued here with passing the mic to you, Stephen, for Thrivable Futures.
Great. Thank you for that, Michael. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I think Naropa is on the cutting edge of becoming a sustainable, truly sustainable and regenerative campus, in large part to your work. So thank you for that. Thank you for the presentation. And my part is going to be fairly brief. And we're just, sort of talking about Thrivable Futures. It's basically based on this idea that what we do now will determine our future. What we do now politically, what we do now socially, what we do now in terms of, moving the needle in the opposite direction of ecological destruction will determine whether or not we have a thrivable future. So actually right now is incredibly important that we are engaged in environmental activism, we are engaged in community activism, we're engaged in healing modalities, and we are engaged in, so on and so forth. Like everything that Naropa is doing right now is absolutely critical to our future, and we truly believe that, and we think that that's our approach to education is on the cutting edge of an education for the 21st century and the multiple problems that we face. And so I'm going to quickly go over the IPCC report of 2018. I'm going to talk about integrative and relevant curriculum for eco-social justice. And then I'm going to end with a brief discussion of the food forest on campus and the greenhouse, which are two living laboratories that we use for curriculum. And so this was a summary for policymakers of the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is one of the most authoritative bodies in the world. It's a subgroup of the United Nations. They came out with a special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius in 2018. And basically where we're at right now as far as warming goes is we're about 1 degree Celsius of warming. It has taken us more or less since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to reach 1 degree Celsius of warming. And we could reach 1.5 degrees actually in 10 years with business as usual. But this report was written by 91 scientists from 40 countries who analyzed more than 6,000 scientific studies. And yeah, 1C warming so far, 1.5 degrees Celsius in 10 years. At 1.5 degrees Celsius, higher risk of damaging impacts, even runaway global warming. So it's actually, at 1.5, we have a higher risk. At 1.6, it's even higher, 1.7, and so on. 2 degrees Celsius is actually, many scientists agree, incredibly dangerous. But crises will manifest in increased weather extremes, floods, droughts, natural disasters, hurricanes, tsunamis, etc., leading to decreased crop yields, loss of coastland, disrupted resource flows, increased conflict over resources, especially water, human rights abuses, environmental refugees, those who are going to suffer the most in the coming climate. So Michael did a really good job of this in his presentation, talking about the integrative aspects of curriculum here at Naropa. And coming from the sustainability department, we really do try to integrate the 4 pillars of the 4 curricular commitments. So, and we all bear a responsibility as faculty at Naropa to integrate these curricular commitments into our education. So sustainability and the contemplative. And we want to incorporate social justice and inclusion and diversity. in our sustainability education and curriculum. We want to include the arts and healing modalities into sustainability. And this is what Naropa offers. Its unique offering in the world of higher education is a commitment to teaching across all of these different curricular commitments. And I'm gonna, we can talk, or yeah, I might come back to that a little bit more, but whatever program or department or field that you're in, we absolutely need to be also incorporating sustainability into that, as well as social justice and inclusion into that, as well as, you know, contemplative education, arts and healing into that. And if you have any questions about how to incorporate sustainability, or maybe you want to take a class out to the food forest, maybe you're in, you know, psychology or one of the healing modalities, and, you know, how might you incorporate like permaculture or gardening as, you know, a healing modality, or how might you incorporate the arts or social justice and inclusion into, you know, urban agriculture or something like that, please talk to me and I'm happy to share ideas. And, you know, relevant, of course, you know, we want our education or our teaching, our curriculum, our pedagogy to be relevant. And how I understand this is empowering students to meet the challenges of today so that they may thrive in the future, whether personally, socially, professionally, politically. And, you know, we take that seriously in the environmental studies department, especially with climate change sort of breathing down our neck. What skills and knowledge do students need right now in order to be effective actors to create the futures that we all want, that we all need, that we all deserve? So those are some of the questions that we consistently and constantly ask in the environmental studies department. And here are some of the living laboratories that we have on campus, and we invite you to participate in these. But the Naropa Food Forest site began in 2015, and actually over the course since I came on in 2016, we've been slowly changing it and evolving it. And this spring and summer, actually, we were able to work remotely and, you know, individually on campus to build out the food forest more and more. I think this summer alone, we planted well over 50 different plants, herbaceous, perennials mostly, some bushes, as well as some annuals as well. And this is what the food forest site looked like in 2014. This is now what it looks like in 2020. And this just sort of, yeah, there's a lot to be said here. And we're still working on the aesthetic aspects of this design. But in permaculture, permanent agriculture, permanent culture, the sustainable, this regenerative approach to landscape design and human design of human settlements, aesthetics don't necessarily factor high on our list of criteria by which we make decisions. What does is form and function. So with form in permaculture, we want to replicate the forest. And so you'll see multiple different layers of space being taken up in this forest. And then function. So a lot of the plants that we pick mostly provide for human needs, whether in terms of food or fiber, you know, pharmaceuticals, and so on. And so form and function are actually far more important in permaculture. At the same time, we are working to increase the aesthetic appeal of the food forest because it is a public-facing institution. But there are multiple ways to get involved. We hope to be coming out with a statement on how people can interact with these commons responsibly and in a way that everyone can still enjoy it. So it's basically like, you know, how do you interact with the commons, you know, in general in life? And so we're working on that policy, and we'll be sending that out. But again, if you want to bring your class to the food forest, if you want to bring your class to the greenhouse, this picture is actually from a few years ago. If you go into the greenhouse now, it is far more dense as far as biomass goes, but it is another living laboratory that you have access to as a faculty, as an instructor here at Naropa. And that is about it on my end.
Thank you. That was great, Stephen. Thank you for a really comprehensive and insightful approach to what we're trying to do over here. And I would just echo what Stephen said. I'm available to talk about sustainability across the curriculum and our approach to it and sort of the tools that we've developed so far, and encourage you to explore the living laboratories that Stephen has outlined here. We're in the process of planning the design for a memorial garden as part of a network of pocket gardens around the campuses that are coming, the memorial for a student who passed away in May. And that's in the just elementary stages right now, and maybe creating a partnership with CU to build a greenhouse on some CU property just adjacent to Naropa property. But really, we're both available and open to answer questions about what sustainability is and sort of how it's more than just maybe like renewable energy and compostable forks and things like that. It's a way of thinking about life and thinking about how we move through our relationships with one another and with ourselves and with the earth. So I look forward to meeting you, hopefully in person at some point soon, but maybe it'll have to be on the phone or on Zoom for now, unfortunately. I guess I would just welcome you to Naropa, and thanks for joining us today.
Hello and welcome to Entering the Culture and Traditions of Naropa University. My name is Giovannina Jobson. I'm a faculty member at Naropa University. I've been here for about 20 years, and I am a senior student of the founder, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and I'm very delighted to go over some of this information with you. And this is a welcoming event for new members of the community, faculty, and staff. Today, we're talking about a little bit about our founder, our history, our mission, Naropa today, our culture, and some of our values. We'll start with the bow, which I'm sure by now you might have done it at least 2 or 3 times, but it's one of those things that never gets old. We do it at the beginning of programs, at the end. We do it at the beginning of class and to end classes. And we also do it in individual meetings. Of course, it's not mandatory, but it is a gesture unique to Naropa. And it is a way of respecting each other and of signaling the beginning and end of things. And it's a very immediate mindfulness practice. Our founder, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, started Naropa in 1974. And you can see here, he was born in Tibet in 1939, escaped the invasion, and made his way to the West, first to India and then to Oxford University, and finally arriving at the US, where he initially taught at the University of Colorado and was very successful in his teachings, and that's where groups of people began requesting more teachings from him, and it was actually the beginning of the Sangha, the community of students that grew around him and requested him to teach further. Out of that was where the idea of starting Naropa University spawned.
What we knew in the founder, in Trungpa Rinpoche, was somebody who was spontaneous all the time, unpredictable all the time. And therefore, what Naropa is today, when it's at its best, I think, is that it's unpredictable, it's spontaneous, it's creative. And that's very much tying the place to its roots. It's not some hidebound connection to sort of musty tradition in some way, which I think from time to time people have felt that really is more the way to stay connected, is to sort of keep pretty firmly looking to the way it was. And that's not something, and especially at a place like Naropa, where of all places the students are never going to let the place sort of be the way it was. And I think that really is as much a connection to our founding energy as anything else.
So regarding the beginnings of Naropa University, as you might have heard, it started in the summer, and nobody knew what to expect. Almost like 2,000 people showed up here in Boulder, Colorado, and created Naropa. Like, this group was a very eclectic group of people composed of scholars, scientists, poets, dancers, musicians, people really interested in the evolution of consciousness in their own spiritual path and expressing their passion. So it was quite a wonderful, amazing group of people, inspired by Trungpa Rinpoche and his lectures on a daily basis, as well as Ram Dass, who taught alternatingly with Trungpa Rinpoche, and between the two of them created quite a dynamic situation that was just ripe for exploration, collaboration, and out of that developed this view and this inspiration for Naropa and its emergence from that point. And I believe that we have very much kept that kind of spirit as the foundation and guidance for Naropa University. So Naropa was established in 1974 and accredited in 1986. Naropa was named after a very famous Indian Mahapandita, or very learned person. He was a scholar and abbot of Nalanda University. Nalanda University existed for over 1,000 years in India, and it was a center of learning and renown throughout that part of the world. But the story goes, one day he was just sitting reading a text, and an old hag or deformed woman came up to him and asked him what he was doing. And he said that he was reading. And she asked him, well, do you understand the words? And he said, of course I understand the words. And she was happy to hear that. And then she asked, and do you understand the meaning? And he said, yes, I understand the meaning. And at that point, she started to beat him on the head with a stick and being very angry. And he asked, why are you doing this? Why are you so angry? And she said, because you don't understand the meaning. And so he asked, well, how do I understand the meaning? At that point, he realized that a lot had to do with his arrogance, with his confidence in the knowledge and learning that he had forgotten to really walk the talk, so to speak. And so he asked the hag for guidance, and she said, well, you should go find a teacher and you should go look for Talopa. Talopa was also a very renowned Siddha and enlightened person. And so Naropa begins on his journey. He leaves the university, leaves all his position and teaching, and embarks on a journey to find Talopa. Of course, this is easier said than done. It took him many years. And as the story goes, he was put under many trials and tribulations, which he failed pretty much all of the time until the very end, and unable to find his teacher because through his arrogance and blindness, he kept missing him all the time. So one of these stories is that there was an old dog lying in his path with leeches and just in a very horrible and painful condition, but the dog was blocking Naropa's path. And as he's approaching the dog, he just kicks the dog out of the way and keeps going. And at that point, Naropa realizes what he did as Talopa appears in the form of the dog and says, that dog was me. And so, completely humiliated and humbled, Naropa has to continue on his journey. So, the point of this is very much that learning has to be embodied, and it has to be accepted in a humble and sincere way. Book learning, intellectual knowledge is only part of the journey. And that's why Naropa, our university, was named Naropa, because of our commitment to teaching in that way that trains the whole person, heart, body, and mind. Next is the Naropa seal, and this is a symbol that we have on all our stationery, our pins that our students get when they graduate, and in our banners. And it was designed by our founder, and it means Prajna Garbha, Sanskrit word, which means womb of wisdom, or the place where wisdom is nurtured. A Naropa education, reflecting the interplay of discipline and delight, prepares its graduates both to meet the world as it is and to change it for the better. Naropa today is a private, nonprofit, non-sectarian liberal arts institution dedicated to advancing contemplative education. We have many undergrad and graduate programs, as you can see. We have a total of a little bit over 900 students at Naropa. Our culture comprises of the activities, the events, the celebrations that we hold as very special, and we put very special attention to how they are executed and to the message that they convey. We already talked about the bow, and that's one of the primary gestures that are part of our culture. Contemplative practice is very basic and foundational to Naropa, and the contemplative pedagogy is very much integrated in all of our classes and programs. Community Practice Day is a major celebration at Naropa. We also have the Lunar New Year, education itself, and administration. So our contemplative practice involves meditation and many other mindfulness types of practice. All of them promote self-reflection, explore personal challenges, and deepen trust in our own inherent wisdom. And we have such a variety of practices that students and faculty and staff can choose from. There's always innovation. Every semester there's something new and creative that is offered. Practice Day is a wonderful event, very unique to Naropa. It's one day each semester where we suspend classes and we close the daily business of the university for the entire community to engage in a contemplative practice. And that involves meditation practices, also other practices from all kinds of different traditions, such as Hinduism, Sufism, some also pagan practices, as well as martial arts and visual arts and so on. And movement and dance also are very important. Another unique celebration to Naropa is the Lunar New Year celebration. And this was instituted by our founder to begin celebrating the lunar calendar, which is acknowledged in many, many countries of the world. And because we're a unique blend and meeting of East and West, this celebration is a way of reconnecting with some of our roots and bringing in our own diversity, enthusiasm, and creativity to celebrate a day such as this. Contemplative education. The point is not to abandon scholarship, but to ground it, to personalize it, and to balance it with the fundamentals of mind training, especially the practice of sitting meditation, so that inner development and outer knowledge go hand in hand. A balanced education cultivates abilities beyond the verbal and conceptual to include matters of heart, character, creativity, and self-knowledge. And this is a quote by Judy Leaf, one of our first presidents, and this very much expresses our mission and the view of contemplative education very well. So we have many methodologies for teaching contemplative education, and we have many explanations of what contemplative education means and is, and it definitely is not a limited view at all. We can't just put it in a little box and define it. But here are some of the concepts and objectives that we work with in terms of how education works. It enables the learner to tap into a wellspring of knowledge about the nature of mind and self. That's a very important aspect that is often overlooked by traditional Western liberal universities. Contemplative administration. Naropa is a contemplative workplace. We are kind to each other. We take responsibility for our actions. We try to communicate skillfully. We are resourceful and generous and open-minded. And this view is encouraged and respected by everyone here. As part of our contemplative administration, we have community meetings where staff and faculty, students bring their voice to express whatever their concerns are or to talk about themes of the day. It's a wonderful way of maintaining communication with the whole community. And also part of that are some of the events that we already mentioned, such as practice day, commencement, convocation, many meetings, and staff council. So Naropa has these basic values rooted in the contemplative practice, rooted in the view of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusivity, as well as sustainability and regeneration. Our commitment to working with diversity is extremely powerful. It's something that's always a leading edge for Naropa University, and we have many programs and plans for this coming year to continue the development of this process at Naropa. Also, sustainability and the environment are extremely important to us, and there's a lot of information about this. And please check out the sustainability page on Naropa website. We are completely committed to the environment and to zero waste. Here are some suggested books if you'd like to learn more about the founder. Born in Tibet is a wonderful autobiography. Also, Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, has many of the themes that our contemplative path is founded on. And the library has many, many resources, wonderful videos and lectures from many guests at Naropa University, including poetry readings from the Jack Kerouac School. We also have many books written by our faculty that are brilliant books about their subject matter and about contemplative pedagogy in general. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this and that you are a little bit more familiar with Naropa than you were before. Nonetheless, there are many resources here. I highly encourage attending events and participating in as much as you can. There are wonderful, learned people at Naropa that you can consult that are happy to mentor new faculty. Hello, everyone. I'm Giovannina Jobson, and I do many rituals at Naropa. Right now, we are in the transition shrine, which is this place right here that you see. There are many items here, and these were all placed here by students. And the shrine itself was created and donated by the Master of Divinity students several years ago. And it has become a wonderful place for people to come and offer something or dedicate their intention. It's a place where you can physically express whatever it is that you're feeling or that's going on with you. And as you can see, many people have left notes and have left pottery and different kinds of statues and things. So it is very much multi-traditional. So what I'd like to do today is a very short ritual, which is a welcome ritual to Naropa University, and to acknowledge the beginning of the semester. So what we're doing is a smoke offering, and I have charcoal burning in here, and we're putting juniper powder And this juniper comes from our own area here, which is ground up juniper bush made into a powder. And we also have juniper itself to pass through. So juniper is native of our area. And our founder began teaching us to use it to make offerings like this with smoke, because it is said that smoke communicates. As you know, it rises up and it carries our wishes and intentions to the wider world and beyond. And not only that, but to beings that aren't necessarily sentient beings like us. So this is the offering. When the smoke is going, one pauses and you just try and maintain a focus and a sense of calm. And as we do that, I will ring the gong and then read this invocation. And you at home, you can certainly take an item that's meaningful to you. It could be an intention, it could be a book, or even a pen, or anything that's meaningful that you would want to purify. The smoke also has the property of purification and dedicating our intention. So I'm going to bow to begin. Invocation. From the space of auspicious coincidence, in the karmic forces which brought us all to this gathering, we invoke the elemental energies of the four directions, the ancestral powers of this very ground, along with the lineage of Naropa University, its founder, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, as well as the teachers, staff, students, past and present, and our personal ancestors, parents, teachers, friends, all those who have helped us come to this point. Please approach, come here, gather like clouds around us. Inspire our insight, gentleness, and confidence as we begin this academic year. We offer this juniper smoke, fragrant and pleasing. Please accept it. Having accepted it, please empower, inspire, and open our hearts so that we may activate our motivation and enthusiasm for hearing, contemplating, and meditating, and so that we may begin to uncover our true nature as brilliant and compassionate beings for the welfare of ourselves and others. And I am going to pass my own item through here, which for me is meaningful. And what it is a walnut that just fell from a tree in my backyard. And to me, it reminds me of my childhood. The pungent smell has a lot to do with just courage, and also its ability to nurture the world, animal realm as well as human realm. And it's beautiful. And I am also going to allow some smoke to come to my body and purify myself. And please feel free to do the same yourself. You could burn some incense at home if you want to, or burn some juniper. And then to conclude this, there's just a final recitation prayer that I will read. By the power of this offering, may all beings in all directions have food, shelter, and all the necessities of life. May they have good hearts, good fortune, and caring companionship, be free from enmity, anxiety, disease, and strife. May all beings everywhere be filled with the feelings of loving kindness, abundant and measureless, and extend those feelings towards Mother Earth and all that she sustains. May the hearts of all living beings be open and live in peace. All of the hearts of people going by on their skateboards and our garbage trucks and our delivery people, all of these hearts, may they live in peace.